Hi, this is the We Like Women political party. We like women and we are proud to like women, and if they do not like women, they are the enemy. This video is about turning the United States, Canada, Australia, and Europe into a superpower, a European, American, Canadian, Australian Union. Just like there was a European Union, we want a European, American, Canadian, Australian Union. Now, part of the reason is to protect Canada and Australia, because Canada and Australia are massively outnumbered. They're outnumbered hundreds to one. I mean, Canada globally is outnumbered way over 200 to one, and Australia is outnumbered over 300 to one. You know what I mean? So this video is about protecting them. And basically now you see, so basically Canada and the and Australia have to become, you know, a European, American, Canadian Union. Like, look at this map right here. You know, there's I'm sorry, I'm not okay, there it is. See, European, American, Canadian, Australian Union. This is Australia. European, American, Canadian, Australian Union. Now, we have to do this because, you see, again, I told you, Canada's outnumbered over 200 to 1. Australia's outnumbered over 300 to 1. This is what's going to happen to Canada and Australia if they don't. There are global movements that want to do this. They want to declare them illegal, and they're outnumbered hundreds to 1. See, look at this. Okay, Australia, divided amongst the whole world. Part goes to Europe, but the other part goes to South Asia and the Middle East. The other part goes to East Asia. The other part goes to Africa, and the other part goes to North and South America. Because they have a lot of land and they have a small population. Same thing with Canada. See, there's Canada. There's Europe. There's Africa, East Asia, North and South America, South Asia, and the Middle East. You see, if that happens, if the whole world unites to peacefully take their land, you know, they're basically going to, over 90% of the Canadian population is going to be forced to move out, and so is 90% of the Australian population. This is what they'll do. See, look. It'll be divided amongst the whole world. There's Australia, like every country in the world there, you know, taking their turf. And then this is, you know, and then this is, you know, same thing with Canada. You know, every country in the world is going to take their turf. You know, like you saw that, part going to China, part going to India, you know, part going to, part going to like the Middle Eastern countries, part going to Africa, part going to Central America. But, you know, I mean, basically, the whole world's going to unite and take their land, you know, part going to Europe. Well, with our proposal, you know, and we feel that the Canadians and Australians are much more comfortable with this. We're going to create a European, American, Canadian, Australian Union. Because, first of all, most of the Canadians and Australians are of European descent, or, you know, European American. And so they'll feel Canada's very close to the U.S., so if they become, you know, like Europe became the European Union, and if Australia and Canada become European American, you know, European American Australia, European American Canada, or, you know, the European American Canadian Australian Union, not much is going to change in their territory. You know, most of the people will still have their homes. You know, the rich people will still keep their wealth. You know, there'll just be like probably more people, you know, like everybody in Europe and Canada and the U.S. are automatically citizens of Canada and Australia. There'll probably be more people moving there. But, you know, that's about it. You know what I mean? So, so, you know, so not much will change in Canada and Australia. If the other version happens, you know, where the whole world decides to take their land, you know, this version right here, then what's going to happen is that, you know, over 90% of the Australians and the Canadians are going to be forced to move out of their lands, you know, and most of the rich people are going to lose their wealth. Most of the poor people are going to lose their homes. So it's in the best interest of the Canadians and Australians to have this European, American, Canadian, Australian Union, European, American, Canadian, Australian Union. Now there are other ways to make it happen. Okay, like we have other versions to where the Australians and Canadians will feel more comfortable. Again, we have to do this. If we don't, Canada and Australia are going to be declared illegal and international territory, even though they have treaties, you know, like the Commonwealth with Canada and Australia and the UK. It's not strong enough. They have to totally become our countries, because there'll be international laws. You know, there's 7 billion people out there. They'll just declare those treaties null and void. You know, even like military defense treaties, like with Australia and the US, ANZUS, or the U.S. defending Canada, they'll just be declared illegal in court. You know what I mean? Because there's 7 billion people that have way too much power, way too much pull, you know, way too much influence. So, Canada and Australia have to become European American Canada, European American Australia. Now, there are versions that the Canadians, like, we have several versions. Remember, okay, first of all, okay, this is another version. Okay, Canadians have a lot of French Canadians and a lot of English-speaking Canadians. So we might have this right here. Look at this. See where it's a UK, French, Irish, American Union. You know, there's a lot of French Canadians over there in Quebec. You know, a lot of English-speaking Canadians. So Canada could become united with the France, UK, and the United States and Ireland. So they'll become, you know, like that. They'll be very comfortable with that. A lot of the Canadians, you know, not much will change, and they'll become like one country with the U.S. Another version is, you know, like with Australia, you know, UK, French, Irish, American Union, or UK, Irish, American Union. There's not a lot of French in Australia, but they might feel more comfortable with that. So that's one version that we want to try to promote. So that way, you know, not much will change in Canada. The Canadians will keep their land. Canada will remain a superpower. Another one is this version here. European, American, Canadian, Australian Union. European, American, Canadian, Australian Union. Basically, you know, Europe and the, you know, it'll be the same thing like with, you know, a European Union, where Europe, it's kind of like one country where they're all citizens of each other. You know, one person in Europe can go to another country and work or whatever, but they're still separate countries. We could have the same with, you know, Canada, Australia, United States, and Europe, where we're all like kind of citizens of each other and we're united into a superpower. That would be kind of cool. You know what I mean? Not much will change with this. There probably will, because Europe has over 700 million people and the U.S. has over 300 million people. There'll be more people from the U.S. and Europe moving to Australia or Canada. But, you know, not much is going to change in their countries. So this might be the preferred version, or that UK, French, Irish, American version. There's another version here where, like maybe like Canada could become part of the U.S., like like a Canadian American Union, you know, an Australian European Union, an Australian European American Union. These are just different examples. We've got to work them out. But we have to defend Australia and Canada, and we want Canada and Australia to be amongst the world's greatest superpowers. We're basically pursuing a superpower policy with Canada, Australia, the United States, and Europe. A superpower policy. You know, like there's one here, you know, U.S. and Europe, U.S. and Europe. Now, and then, you know, like here's another example of something we could do. Like there's the European countries, like you see there's France, Poland, Italy, Germany, UK, you know, Finland, Austria, Norway, Greece. I mean, all those countries. You know what I mean? Switzerland, and part of Canada will go to the U.S. Same thing with Australia. You know, half will go to Europe, half will go to the U.S. But it's just kind of like a union. You know what I mean? There might be spheres of influence. More than likely, it's just going to be a European, American, Canadian, Australian union. But I'm just giving some examples out there. Now, remember, Canada and Australia are outnumbered by the whole world, which is over 7 billion people. With Europe and the United States, it's barely over 1 billion people. So it might not be strong enough, you know, through international treaties to even defend Australia and Canada. So here's some other versions. Now, the Canadians and Australians, it's in their best interest because, you know, they'll feel more comfortable with Europeans and Americans, and we know they do. We know we did studies on it. Most of their population tends to be European, you know, of European descent. So we want them to focus on a European-American union. You know what I mean? Canada and Australia have to focus on some sort of union with Europe and the U.S. With Europe, yeah. And now, if for some reason that's not strong enough, you know, it's only 1 billion people, barely over, you know, 1.1, 1.2 billion people versus 7 billion, we might have to bring in some other countries. And these are other options just to protect Australia. Like, okay, like a union with the United States. Look at this. With the United States and Mexico and Europe. You know, like a North American Union, you know, the U.S., Mexico, Caribbean island, and Europe. So it'll be like Australia and Canada having a union with Europe, United States, and Mexico, and the Caribbean islands, North America. That might make it a little bit more stronger. They might not prefer that, but that's one version. That's just to protect them. We're still going to focus on European, American, Australia. Here's another one. A European, American, North and South American Union, you know, where there's a union with the U.S., Canada, Australia, Europe, and the U.S. and, you know, North and South America in general. You know what I mean? That's another version. They might not feel comfortable with that, but they might have to. That'll bring the force up to, you know, over almost 2 billion people, so that'll make it much stronger. Another version they might have, you know, like India. Okay, India has 1.2 billion people or 1.3 billion people. You know, where Europe, where there's Canada as a European American Union, and look at this, like Australia, 2/3 of it is a European American Union, 1/3 of it goes to India. That'll bring our force to almost about probably 2.5 billion people. So we'll definitely be strong enough to take on the rest of the world. That might be one version too. You know what I mean? But what we're going to prefer, is the European American union. You know what I mean? A union with Europe and the United States. So these are what we're going to try to push for. Okay, that's what we're going to try to push for, so the Canadians will feel comfortable. Either this UK, French, Irish, American union. There's a lot of French Canadians. Or UK, Irish, American union, or a European, American, Canadian, Australian union. There you go. You see Australia right there. So that's what we're going to try to do. That way we could turn Australia and Canada into a superpower. We could get millions of Europeans and Americans to migrate to Canada and Australia, therefore turning them into superpowers instead of relatively, small population countries for the huge land masses that they have. Canada has just like 34 million people. Australia just has like 21 million, 22 million people. And so if the whole world unites, they're going to take their land, and every country will get a lot more land. You know what I mean? Especially those Asian countries on Australia. So we have to unite and create this European American Union, with Canada and Australia. It'll turn Canada into a superpower. It'll turn Australia into a superpower, and we're going to pursue a superpower policy. And we also do want Canada and Australia to become amongst the world's greatest superpowers. We have a massive population increase program that we want. 1 billion European American Canadians, 1 billion European American Australians, 1 billion European Americans. So Canada and Australia will become powers, superpowers. Way more powerful and much more populated than even India or China. So nobody could mess with them and declare them illegal. We'll turn Canada into a superpower. We'll turn Australia into a superpower. Same thing with the US and Europe. So this whole union thing, Europe, America, Canada, and Australia, that's kind of like what we're trying to do. So this is to save Canada, because Canada and Australia should be aware that there are people out there in the international global movements, that are in the international community that are talking about declaring them illegal. And Canada and Australia are massively outnumbered. I mean, they're outnumbered hundreds to one. They will probably be declared illegal by law. You know what I mean? So they have to become a European American Canada, or those other versions that I told you, in order to protect themselves. And so we are going to pursue a policy of superpower Canada, superpower Australia, superpower European, American, Canadian, Australian, union. You know what I mean? A superpower. All four of those areas are going to be superpowers. They're huge territories, and they should become superpowers. Again, thank you very much. This is the We Like Women political party. We like women, and we are proud to like women. Oh, and by the way, you do not have to do this. You do not have to do this. But if you could donate at least $2, that would be fantastic. Just $2, because it'll totally help us. Or even a $3 or $4, or just a dollar, whatever it takes. Because we're trying to make this a huge movement, so we can turn Canada, Australia, the United States, and Europe into a union and turn them into superpowers. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Thanks.